you live with that. And people do judge you on scars. They do. Ugh. I didn't know what to expect before going into this video, but it's a heavy one. Hi, welcome back to Boneitch, a channel dedicated to explaining what it's like to live with Tourette's. I just realized that there is an interview kind of video posted by UNILAD with Sweet Anita, the Twitch streamer. And I love Sweet Anita, I love her streams. I think she does a great job at showing people what Tourette's is like, but also just being a really cool person in general. Yeah, I think it looked like a very cool video, so I'm just going to react to it, see what I think about it, and I hope that's going to be interesting. I only watched a small clip and I saw there was a trigger warning for self-harm, so please be careful if that's something that's triggering to you. Other than that, I'm excited to do this, so let's go.
How long have you had Tourette's?
As far back as I can remember, if I'm honest. I mean, I actually had noticeable tics before I was speaking.
Woo.
So probably at least since the age of 1 or 2. Weirdly,
Yes, that's really young to have had tics that young. Usually Tourette starts around between the ages of 3 and 15, I guess. I'll probably correct myself in the edit afterwards, but yeah, the average age is I think 6 years old. So to have had tics even that young that's really young. Yeah. Personally, I also had tics when I was really young, but they didn't really get that. It didn't really get that bad until I was well in my 20s. So everyone's Tourette's is different. Like really, you can put 100 people with Tourette's in a room and they're all going to be different. I think that's something that makes Tourette's even more interesting. So yeah.
Michael Schumacher. I have no idea why, but I'd also wolf whistle, so I'd quite often go and it was so clear and loud that nobody thought it was me because I was a toddler. So people thought it was my mum. And
so the stupid thing is, I have a whistling tic, but I can't whistle. So I'll just do the face, and that's it. So it looks really stupid. Especially when I watch other people, videos by other people that have a whistling tic. I'll just copy the face and it just looks really ridiculous, but yeah.
So yeah, she was like, could you stop doing that? Because big burly builder men and stuff would come and hit on her when she didn't want them to. You say silly things as a kid and people don't really think too much of it. But I did swear a lot, and people did raise an eyebrow at my parents because of it. But it was pretty much not that much of a problem until I got old enough that people started to be like, why is this still happening? I went to...
So yeah, that's very legit. I mean, even in general, it's quite common for children to have tics, and they'll just grow out of it. They might not even have Tourette's, but they'll have tics. And children are weird anyway, so it's not that strange that if you're a child and you had tics, that it wasn't that noticeable back then. But then you grow older and you still can't stop, and that's when it all becomes very real. So yeah, I can relate to that, absolutely, yeah.
Doctor, I was like, my arm keeps doing this thing and I'm not asking it to, and sometimes I say stuff I don't mean to. And the doctor was like, do you hear voices? I was like, no. Do you think you have magical powers? No. Do you see things that aren't there? No. And so they're like, well, you seem Like, you've got a perfectly functional mind. You're probably just attention seeking and you'll grow out of it. And I got told this about 3 or 4 times, and it was really frustrating. And I felt really afraid to engage with people because I thought they'd think I was attention seeking, and I thought they'd automatically hate me. So I was terrified of interacting with people after that.
That's awful. What were they thinking? I mean, I think she's about my age, right? About 30. And it's not that Tourette's is, I mean, yeah, there are many doctors that still don't really understand Tourette's that well. But then, I mean, like, what were they thinking? It was a form of, like, psychosis or something. It's ridiculous. And I can also really relate to the idea that if you don't know what's wrong with you and you just can't stop doing something, that somehow naturally you start thinking that it's your fault and there's something wrong with you, and that you think that you might be attention seeking or just doing it for some reason, even though you can't actually stop it. And that makes stuff really hard. And I had that when I was in my 20s, so I can't even imagine what that'd be like if you are a child and you're growing up. And yeah, that stuff is really rough. And I really hate that for her, that the, you know, doctors and people that are supposed to have an objective, professional viewpoint on things and be professionals and good at their job and be there to help you. Then when they don't do that, that's absolutely awful. And then even then, Tourette's, of course, it's not a dangerous thing to have. It can be, well, it can be dangerous, but in and of itself, it's not a dangerous thing. But having tics can be caused by other things as well, by other brain conditions, other things, other medical conditions that might actually be in and of themselves very dangerous. So that's why if you have tics, you should always go to a doctor, first of all. And that doctor should take that seriously, even if, and they should not be like that, even if they don't take Tourette seriously, they should take a person involuntarily making sounds and movements seriously, because that's not, you know, normal. I'm going on a bit of a rant here already, but
that much of a problem until I tried to go into conventional schooling. So, when I started to try real school, I had a lot of barriers. I couldn't explain while I was talking, just shouting over the teachers. I quite often insulted other students, and it kind of all ended with me being beaten unconscious by a bunch of sixth formers when I was about 12 or 13. And I was like, well, there's no point getting an education if you're not going to have a future to use it in. So I ended up going back into home education after that.
Wow. That's just, oh my God, I hate that. Fucking hell. Hey, fuck you. So I have this series in which I talk with people with Tourette's from different countries with different experiences. And 2 weeks ago, last week, whenever this video is going up, I made a video with Abby from England, and she's a teenager, and she's also dealt with this, just the bullying and teachers not understanding. And I think that's just awful, because Tourette's in and of itself is already so difficult to live with, and then to have people just physically hurting you or and emotionally hurting you. Oh my God. I can't believe that people are like that, even if they're children. I mean, I hate that. Hey. Oh, also, I mean, if you've never watched my channel before and you're wondering why I'm copying her tics, that's called echolalia, and that's very common with Tourette's, just when you echo and mimic sounds and movements, and especially when you hear someone else tic. That's very common, and it's definitely something I have. When I hear someone tic, I'll copy their noises, their tics. So that's just a thing. Also, if you're new, please consider subscribing. We're almost hitting 500 subscribers, so that's really cool. I'm really happy about that. So, shameless plug is over. Let's continue.
Devastating to see that I kept hurting people's feelings and people kept pushing me away, and people kept judging me, and I kept hurting the people around me that I really cared about. Even my mum, I used to pinch her on the back of the arm. I didn't understand why I couldn't always control my actions and why they were so self-sabotaging. I was incredibly depressed. I ended up depressed for 13 years. I was not only socially phobic, but also socially inept. I was really awkward and terrified of people. Never liked to even make eye contact. That was terrifying. It just made me a recluse. I became agoraphobic. It was so difficult to get a start in life because I just became really socially phobic of people.
You got some scars on your arm. Was that something that was during the period of depression you were going through?
That all started when I was about 8 or 9. And I didn't think that anyone would ever know that I did it. And I don't mind talking about it because I'm not ashamed. And I didn't realise that anyone would find out or know, or anyone would judge me for it, because I was a child and I was always alone. So, yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So, I did not have the exact same experience, of course, but I did deal with a lot of depression when I was a teenager, and I also self-harmed a lot. I still have the scars. They're still there. I'm not necessarily ashamed of them. They're there. They're part of me now. It's weird when I'm talking about my own experience with that. Kind of like she says, it's like, you know, I'm not ashamed of them. It's part of me. It's fine. But then when you hear someone else talk about it, yeah, I feel that. And I hate that. I just hated that for her. I don't know. It's a weird thing because it's so visceral, I think. So literally painful even to look at. Even though it's a coping skill, it's a coping mechanism. It's not just asking for attention. That's not why I did it, and like she explains, not why she did it. It's a coping skill, and there's, you know, a chemical reaction in your brain when you're in pain that actually makes you feel better. I mean, I don't recommend it. Like, don't start doing it because it is addictive, and that's the whole thing about it. Is because it gives you a bit of a rush. It's really addictive. I think the rush is the same as getting a tattoo or something, that you get a bit of a rush from the pain, but the consequences can be like short-term really dangerous, and long-term you live with that. And people do judge you on scars. They do. Yeah. I didn't know what to expect before going into this video, but it's a heavy one. Hey.
I have to face judgment and misconceptions about it. In the end, I found healthier ways of coping, but nobody shows you that when you're 9. So this was what I did. And yeah, luckily, don't do it anymore. It took quite a few years to get over it and figure out better ways. But yeah, like I said, I'm not ashamed that I got through it. I didn't really know how to explain myself. I didn't know there was a word for what I was, and I eventually had heard of Tourette syndrome, but I had such a stereotype in my head of what it was that I never thought that could apply to me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh god, yeah. The stereotypes about Tourette's are so wrong. We all know the stereotypes, of course, and wait, there's an ambulance coming by. Because of those stereotypes, people don't realize that they might have something like Tourette's, even though most people with Tourette's will not even have, you know, the complex tics. So most people with Tourette's won't even have visible tics, but they'll still have the symptoms. And this Tourette's is more than just the tics. There's also like just a mental aspect to it, and an energy aspect to it. And it's sad that there are so many people that don't understand that this is what they have, because even though a diagnosis, if you're not opting for treatment, for example, I'm not getting treated for my Tourette's because I don't really feel it's necessary, but getting diagnosed and knowing this is what you have and finding a community and finding a reason why you are like this, and people just like you that are experiencing the same thing. That is so important. So I can definitely relate to this, to her. That's why education is important.
So my stereotype of Tourette syndrome was that it was only swear words, that you always shouted them, that it couldn't ever be complex. And the things that I was doing when I was alone were complex. Sometimes I'd sit there and I'd just go, I killed 52,000 men. And that doesn't seem to fit with the idea of someone just shouting one random word over and over. There were certain situations where it didn't happen, and I didn't know why.
Tics can be very varied. So you have the invisible, very simple tics that don't involve a lot of muscle groups. And then you have the shouting and the stereotypical sounds, and they're usually like on the same pitch and the same word. But then there are also tics that are entire sentences. I can't think of any of them right now, but I try to write them down sometimes because they surprise me too. But they can be whole sentences, and they don't even sound like tics because it doesn't fit with how people see Tourette's. People don't really understand, and that doesn't help, especially when you don't understand that that's Tourette's. Yeah, wow. This is really powerful. I just love how well she's able to express stuff. Of course, she does live streams, so she's used to just speaking well, something I can't do really. It's nice to hear that.
When I'm caring for someone, I don't tick as much. When I whistle, I don't tick at all. And when I focus and fixate on something without distraction, the tics go away. Weirdly, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. So not for me, not while whistling, because I can't whistle, but for me, it's singing, listening to music in general. You won't see me in public without these headphones on, just blasting music, because if I can't hear myself tick, the tick doesn't sound right. It's a bit of hard to explain, but because I can't hear them, I won't really have many vocal tics. And because of the tics that I have in my hands, just to keep my hands busy, I just look like coding, just typing. It's something that really engages my hands. But because when I'm typing, I'm not thinking about my hands. They don't really tick. I mean, it works. It just engages your brain, and it gives you a bit of calm to just actually be in control of your brain and your movements and and your tics in general. Hey.
I'm good at anyway. Sex is one of those things.
Hey.
And a lot of people who have Tourette's tend to report that they have fewer tics or none during sex. But the thing about that is, that's because it engages your focus. So that only applies to good sex, which is really f***ing brutal, because I've never hurt a guy's ego more than simply going during an intimate moment. And
yeah, I had a date once, and I told the girl that she stinks like fish. And that, yeah. Oh, that wasn't good.
Like, I punched a dude in the dick.
Punch him.
He stayed with me for 5 years after that, so he was a champ. In my early 20s, I was like, I've had enough. This is definitely involuntary. This is definitely not attention seeking. I do it when I'm alone. I know it's not about other people. And I went to the hospital and I was like, I really need this diagnosed. I want a life. So I had some brain scans. They tested for copper in my urine. That's why they gathered a week's worth of pee. Because copper poisoning can cause involuntary movements and actions too, and can look like tics. And so this is why anyone who experiences something they suspect is a tic should definitely go to the doctor, because you never know, it could be something incredibly serious. And
exactly, that's what I said. Yeah, exactly. Go to a doctor if you have tics, even if you don't care about it being Tourette's. It might be something else. Please go to a doctor when you have tics. Okay, get it checked out. It's important.
about a lot of things. And yeah, they asked a lot of questions on the kind of psychology side as well. I remember that. So I ended up being about 27 when I finally got the piece of paper that says you have Tourette syndrome, and my life started. And I got a job, I got an explanation, and I got friends, and everything started for me. Because the minute an involuntary and offensive action has an explanation, people can connect with you and relate to you.
Oh my god, yeah. So I think that we were then about the same age when I got diagnosed at 27, 28 as well. That moment, I mean, it sounds weird to be happy to get Tourette's diagnosis, but you finally have this validation that this is what's wrong with you, and you have an explanation, and it just makes stuff so much easier. It's you just have this proof that it's not your fault, and that's such a big step. So, yeah, absolutely. I can relate to that so much.
Tics. I had it ever since I was little. It started as caterpillar and then for some reason got abbreviated to cats along the way. And unfortunately, if you shout cat when someone's driving, they slam the brakes. And so we almost had an accident. And now, whenever I get in a taxi, I end up having to say, hi, I have Tourette syndrome. If I shout cats, don't slam the brakes. If I offer you a fisting, don't try to take me up on the offer. And usually people take that really well, and it's a conversation starter. Whereas if I say nothing, then bad things can end up happening because of the misunderstanding. And so what I've kind of learnt is if I preempt this, I have a funny conversation starter and I get chatting with people. After I got my diagnosis, it felt like it wasn't my fault, and there was no amount of therapy, and there was no amount of like restraint, and there was no amount of anything that could have prevented that from happening. And it wasn't because of me, and it wasn't because I was a terrible person, which was really freeing.
Absolutely, yeah. So Tourette's, again, it's a neurological condition, and it is not your fault. It's not caused by bad parenting. You cannot punish the tics out of a child. It will only make it worse. It's real. And it needs more recognition, I think, in general. Yeah.
Like restraint, and there was no amount of anything that could have prevented that from happening. And it wasn't because of me, and it wasn't because I was a terrible person, which was really freeing. Like I felt like I'd been carrying all this guilt because I just didn't know how to make it stop. And yeah, that I kind of feel like it lifted a tremendous burden just to know why.
So you're a Twitch streamer.
Mm-hmm.
It's in some ways a strange move for someone who's got Tourette's to move into what is a live entertainment platform.
Yeah.
Where there's no editing. Can you just tell us again how that came about?
Yeah, wow, yeah. I can't imagine doing that. Like I film myself. I already find it quite a challenge to film myself having Tourette's, but I edit everything, and I'll do multiple shots of the same thing just to make sure that it comes across well. And then when you're wanking, when I'm trying to say something a bit more serious and maybe have quite an offensive tic, I'll be able to cut that out. I don't know. I find that it's really cool. What's the word? I find that really impressive how she's able to go live with that, with her tics, with her Tourette's. And she has pretty severe Tourette's, right? I mean, that's really cool. And I think people learn a lot from her, and that she has been such an important part of making Tourette's more well-known and even well-liked, I think.
I used to play a game called Overwatch online on the PC. And the reason why I did that was because I discovered push to talk. You hold down the button, you speak, you lift it up, no one can hear you. Oh my god, for the first time people knew me before they knew I had Tourette's. People didn't get confronted with any threats, any ass slapping, anything involuntary, anything rude. They just heard me. And I loved it. And I got so much confidence from making friends with people before they found out about my condition. I got chatty. I talked to anyone just because it was so nice to be a person and not a person with Tourette's. And that made me hell of a less terrified of conversations and eye contact, that's for sure. But after that, I still had anxiety. I think most people get a bit nervous in social situations, but over time I felt more and more comfortable with myself, and I felt more and more comfortable being challenged and getting out of my comfort zone. And I've also discovered that there's a lot more acceptance than I expected. I didn't know enough about streaming for me to have any expectations that it would go anywhere. I thought a big streamer was someone with 100 viewers, and I think the most I've ever had looking at me at once is about 30,000.
That's a lot. Yeah. Well, I can relate, even though, of course, my audience is nowhere near that big, but just the experience of going on camera and putting yourself out there, or even just watching yourself back, seeing your own tics, like seeing that for the first time, it was really scary and very strange. And but putting yourself out there, it does help build your confidence. For me, it did anyways. I do feel more comfortable in my skin with my Tourette's in general for doing that. So I definitely recommend it. If you feel like doing something like a channel, YouTube, TikTok, streaming, I mean, there are some idiots out there, but in general, a really nice thing. It's a really fun thing to do, and to meet so many people. Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely recommend it. And yeah, I think she paved the way for many Tourette's content creators to try and put themselves out there on the internet. She showed that it was possible. At least that's what I think.
People are very angry that it's live. They're like, you can't help what you say things that are very hurtful. What if people don't want to hear these hurtful things? How could you force that on them? Go on a delay. And it's like, well, chat interaction is completely ruined. You can't interact with people live if they have to wait 5 minutes for you to even see the comment and decide to respond to it. I'm just going to do what I want and act like I'm everyone else, equal to everyone else, and have every right to interact with people the same way everyone else does, until Twitch bans me, which is what I expected to happen. I have the N-word tick, unfortunately. The thing is, context matters. I kind of feel like I put in the title of pretty much everything I create online that I have Tourette syndrome. No one's hearing any of this against their will. They are warned. And the thing with that is, as well, not only are they warned, but context matters. So if swear words in and of themselves are so terrible that nobody should ever have to hear them, and anything that contains them should be banned, we have to ban the dictionary and Wikipedia. Context matters. It's so obvious. And because I'm not trying to denigrate anyone or hurt anyone, the reason I've been let off is to allow access for people with disabilities. And that's
exactly. Oh my God. It reminds me of the situation with Seth Pressler, who was told he was not allowed to attend university anymore because of his coprolalia, because of his swearing tics and N-word tics. And the reaction of someone from the university, I'll link the video in the card, of course, but that if it was any other word, it would have been fine, but that these words were hurtful. And of course, these words are hurtful, but again, this context matters, and it's not voluntary. That's the whole point. It's not voluntary. It's a tic. You can't help it. That's the whole point. And you can't erase one disability from existence just because it's offensive to people. A disability should not be offensive to deplatform people that have a disability, because a disability can be hurtful. I mean, we still exist. We'll still have to go out and go to shops. And when more people know about Tourette's, I hope, and if they understand it more, they won't get offended as much anymore, because they understand that it's not meant to hurt anyone and it's not meant to offend anyone, and that people would just be a bit kinder to one another. Yeah, I'm really happy that, because I saw that whole thing go down with when they wanted to kind of cancel Anita because of her. She was triggered to have this N-word tic on stream. I really agree with her reaction to it, and I'm so happy that Twitch made a decision not to deplatform her and to just understand, to have a nuanced reaction. which is something we really need at the moment.
It's so obvious, and because I'm not trying to denigrate anyone or hurt anyone, the reason I've been let off is to allow access for people with disabilities. And that's why I'm still here, and I'm really glad that the platform has the clarity to recognise that and let me be a part of all this.
When you think back to 15, how does that make you feel about how far you've
Brexit.
come?
I don't know, I would have never expected it. I'd have never thought it was possible. This is not where I expected to be. I think I've got a little way more to go before I'll be proud, but I'm pretty content, and that's enough.
Is there anything that you want to say that we haven't covered?
Off.
Fuck off. Oh wow. Oh, I love this. I love this. Hey. Oh, this was good. Ooh, I can hear again. Oh, I don't know how she's just able to use her sense of language is just really strong, and she has a kind of a powerful, kind but powerful presence, and I think that's something that people really relate to. And even though, of course, the spectacle of watching a channel like that is that the Tourettes is interesting and it's fun and it's a bit of a spectacle and it's entertainment, so that's fine. But eventually you'll see the person and not the tics as much anymore. And I think that's really cool. I think it was really powerful what she had to say. So anyways, what did you think? Did you like this interview? What are your thoughts? Let me know. If you like this reaction, if you want me to react to other stuff, let me know in the comments as well. Maybe leave a like, maybe subscribe. We're almost at 500 subscribers, which is so cool. And I'll see you very soon. Okay. Bye.